This video is brought to you by Sony. Learn what happens when artists meet engineers.
Hey guys, this is Jose Otero. I'm here with Brian Altano.
Hi.
We're going to have a quick conversation about a lot of the news that came out last night for Nintendo.
Sure.
So a bunch of stuff happened last night, right? Like we heard Mario Kart in May.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I lost a bet to associate editor Marty Sleva, by the way. I said April. So
Oh, really?
He won. Yeah, I was like, dude, April, absolutely. So that was interesting.
I'm all for that. Bring it on.
All right, we're going to see some more focus on NFC at E3. So far, NFC is near-field communication, and the only thing that has used it is Pokemon Rumble U, which was kind of a weird experiment that didn't really take advantage of it, maybe in a way that Skylanders sort of takes advantage of how their toys integrate with software.
Yeah, which is pretty much just money on the table for Nintendo right now. Because, I mean, Skylanders is making billions of dollars using non-recognizable figurines, and Nintendo's got this pocket of characters that they could just reach into and place down on the gamepad.
Exactly. Like, some folks have said, use this for Pokemon and it'll be a great solution, and you'll make a ton of money because Pokemon's a big IP. I was like, Nintendo's bigger than that. Imagine every Nintendo character as, like, figurines that you could buy and put in a game somehow.
Every Nintendo character?
Well, a lot of Nintendo characters.
Even Clu Clu Land?
All right, more news from last night. They're doubling down on the gamepad and putting more R&D effort towards that. They've realized that the communication and the message is sort of lost as to what makes the gamepad unique. Yeah. And that's been a big problem, right? We've seen great games that don't take advantage of it. We have something like Donkey Kong Country Returns that's coming out that we hear has, like, nothing is happening on screen while you're playing.
Yeah, and that's sort of been a running problem with Nintendo, is that they create these platforms that use very interesting gimmicks and stuff like that. And I use that word in a good way. Because I know when we first heard about the DS and the Wii, like, these things looked insane. Nintendo showed improved, and they said, this is how we're using it. And third parties said, that's great, we can do something like that too. But Nintendo hasn't really done that with the Wii U gamepad yet. And even with Donkey Kong coming out next month, the Wii gamepad is a blank screen while you're playing it. So no one's really jumping on it, but Nintendo's got to come back. They need to be that slumbering giant, wake up and say, this is what we're doing with it. This is why it rocks again. This is why you need a Wii U.
Yeah, and I'm hoping at E3 or even before then we start to see applications that are going to take advantage of that.
Sure.
I think that'd be really cool. So they addressed the smart devices sort of situation where they've been getting tons of investor pressure to put Nintendo games, essentially, or a Nintendo product on smartphones. And there was a pretty good quote where basically, Iwata said, it is our intention to release some application on smart devices that is capable of attracting consumer attention and communicating the value of our entertainment offering. It's not something as simple as putting Mario on smartphones, although he also made it very clear that he has not put any limitations on the design team.
Sure.
He said to them, okay, you know, it can be a game, but they're sort of being very smart with how they're going to utilize smartphone devices is in not a way to compete with them, but a way to harness them. And they've said that for a while.
Totally, and I think that sort of goes into what I just said about them figuring out how to maximize hardware specifics for their own game potential. Like, I don't think we're just going to see a Super Mario Endless Runner or Mario Angry Birds just because that makes sense in your head, and it might make sense for millions of dollars, which is great, but you're kind of burning bridges on a franchise there. So I see them doing something fresh, something smart, maybe using a pre-existing IP and working it into the format that is a portable touchscreen device outside of the DS and the 3DS, and doing something new there.
And it sounds like Nintendo network IDs are going to play a big part into it too, where you know, the future is sort of the account-based like approach and not the hardware-based, like all the software tied to the hardware approach that has happened. So that's good to hear.
This is the company that invented Street Pass, which had you bringing your 3DS into public places all over the place. Every time you went to a convention or there was a get-together or anything like that, there was a reason to bring that. You were incentivized by doing that. So I see them sort of like retreading back on that, maybe with iOS. I mean, think about how many iOS devices are out there. It's a lot of Street Passes. It's a lot of hats.
Yeah. And they're also looking for, so another piece of news is they're also looking for ways to basically license their characters to new partners. Now, they're being very careful with that, though. It has to be partners that they're not directly competing with. So we're not going to see, like, Mario, for example, on an Xbox. But we are going to see, maybe it's something to the effect of, I mean, we saw Hyrule Warriors announced last month, which was a Zelda game being developed in a very different way by Tecmo Koei. That's one example of it, but it sounds like it's even broader than that and maybe outside of video games. So, you know, does that mean, like, you know, a McDonald's Mario Happy Meal? Does it mean something bigger than that?
I think like they've sort of been quietly doing this for years and sometimes loudly, and I think it's not really anything to be worried about. If you look at there's successes and failures with this. Like I thought that when they handed the Star Fox franchise to Rare, I wasn't exactly happy with the result. But when they handed the Metroid Prime and Donkey Kong franchises to Retro, I mean, awesome things happened. So I think that getting people outside of their wheelhouse a little bit to bring in new ideas for their franchises is exactly what the fans want, and it'll help move these series along even further.
Okay, and the last thing that we'll talk about, and this was the big surprise, right? The one more thing in this case was that Nintendo's new business model that they're looking at is quality of life products. It is, and they only specifically mentioned one specific pillar right now, which is health. But this sounds like something that is in line with Touch Generations, which was a label that they had during the DS era and during the Wii era that were products that sort of had unique sort of gamey approaches to subject matter that was not a video game. You know, it was things like Art Academy, it was things like brain training, you know, Wii Fit. But they were very clear to point out it's not just like we're just focusing on making another Wii Fit. We have something bigger in mind here. But I think Nintendo, more than any other company, when they take a big risk like that and when they try something that's not a traditional game, they are really successful at it, and they make it entertaining, and they make it something that people want to try out and play with. Even if brain training was kind of pseudoscience, it was still something that was fun to do, and it sold really well.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see where this goes. They're talking about non-wearable technology.
So I read a lot of responses, and a lot of people made it seem like this means the death of their games division, and I don't read it like that. I think Nintendo's always been able to sort of create a world where there are Wii Fits and there are a link between worlds. And I mean, these things can happen in the same calendar year and successfully reach multiple bases. If everyone's happy about them and everyone's buying them, then sure, they're doing great. And what that does is it sort of brings up the user base of something like the 3DS or the Wii U. And then third parties can go, hey, there's 100 million of those out there. Let's make some games for it. Maybe we can sway some of the Wii Fit people over to play a new Zelda game, or we can sway some of the Zelda people to try out Wii Fit. I mean, I wear this thing every day, which is my Wii Fit pedometer. I traded in my Fitbit for it. This is a wearable device, right? It's sort of in line with some of the things they're talking about, and I'm not against that. I think if we have a world where all those things are still happening, then I'm happy.
Sure. No, I agree with you. I think that it's just sort of interesting because there are a lot of players in the quality of life space right now. I mean, you have companies like Nike, big sports companies, for example.
They're going up against some big people.
Yeah, so I wonder, how this is going to work out. But I think if anyone can make sort of an entertaining product that bridges to a lot of consumers, it is definitely Nintendo.
Sure.
They have that knowledge and that know-how.
Yeah.
So, that was a sort of a brief summary of what happened last night. If you want full, comprehensive roundup of everything that came out of Nintendo's financial meeting last night, make sure you check out our articles and keep it right here at IGN.